Welcome to Infinity News. Hit subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. We appreciate it. Today, we're doing a deep dive into some, well, pretty significant events that went down recently in downtown Los Angeles.
That's right. We've got details here covering protests, quite a bit of property damage, and some targets you really wouldn't expect to see caught up in this kind of thing.
Exactly. So our goal here is to really unpack what happened over that weekend, sticking strictly to the information we have available.
Just laying out the facts, trying to give you a clear picture of a, frankly, complex situation.
Okay, so let's start where some of the first observations seem to have happened. This was on Los Angeles Street, near the 101 Freeway. What was seen there initially?
Well, what immediately jumps out is these automated vehicles, Whimo specifically.
Driverless cars.
Driverless cars, yeah.
Right.
Multiple vehicles were apparently present, and, it's notable because you don't typically associate driverless tech with protest scenes or riots like maybe we saw back in 2020.
Right, they're just sort of there.
And maybe easy to corner or stop, perhaps? That might be part of why they became involved.
And the condition they were found in? Well, it wasn't good, was it?
No, not at all. Some had graffiti scrawled on them, words, statements. We know windows were being smashed on at least one.
And the most dramatic part, one was actually on fire, engulfed in flames.
A pretty intense scene of vandalism. And there's this suggestion that, maybe protesters were using these cars, these sort of visible stationary objects, almost like billboards for their message.
Making a statement on the statement piece of technology itself.
Mm-hmm. And these cars, it's important to remember, are owned by Whimo. That's part of Google's parent company, Alphabet.
Right, so not individually owned cars.
Exactly. Which likely means insurance is involved, company assets, not a personal loss for a driver. Maybe that's, one tiny bit of silver lining in terms of individual impact.
But overall?
Overall, no, it's clearly a negative scene. It's described as not anything we like to see. You got things burning in the streets, acts of vandalism. It's serious civil unrest, regardless of who owns the property.
Absolutely. And the Whimos, while a really striking detail, were just one part of a much bigger picture that day.
Oh, much bigger.
Let's broaden out. We're talking about a large crowd, right? The estimate mentioned is at least 2,000 people involved in anti-ICE protests downtown.
And for anyone maybe not familiar, ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
So 2,000 people, that's a significant number.
Yeah.
And they took a major action.
A very disruptive action. They moved onto the 101 Freeway, basically took it over right there in downtown LA.
Yeah, this was around, 4 p.m. on that Sunday?
About that time, yeah.
But the impact, you can just imagine blocking both directions of a major artery like the 101. Traffic just stops. Dead standstill.
Huge disruption. And law enforcement, they responded. LAPD, California Highway Patrol.
In riot gear.
Many in riot gear, yes. They initially formed a line, it seems, under a bridge there, trying to contain the situation.
And the goal was obviously to clear the freeway.
Right. Get the traffic moving again, ensure safety. They apparently managed to sort of corral the crowd, push them towards an exit ramp, eventually forcing them off the actual freeway lanes.
Were there clashes during that?
There were. It wasn't peaceful dispersal entirely. We know gas canisters were used by officers at some point during this phase.
And specific incidents, too.
Yeah, there's one mentioned involving two motorcyclists. They apparently tried to barge through the skirmish line the officers had formed.
Wow, straight through the police line.
Seems like it. And in doing so, they actually struck and injured two officers.
Okay, so that's direct assault on officer.
Right, and those motorcyclists were arrested on the spot. It just highlights, the kind of direct physical confrontations that were happening.
Definitely shows the intensity there, trying to clear a freeway under those conditions.
Absolutely.
Now, you'd hope maybe things would calm down after the freeway was cleared. But that wasn't the end of it, was it?
No, not by a long shot. The 101 was reopened, but then just a few hours later, around 7:30 p.m., it had to be shut down again.
Shut down again? Why? What happened then?
Well, this time, the problem was people described as rioters hurling objects down onto the southbound lanes.
Hurling objects onto moving traffic lanes.
Onto the lanes, yeah. And not just small stuff. We're talking glass bottles, even chunks of concrete they'd apparently broken off from bollard posts.
Good grief. That's incredibly dangerous.
Extremely. And at the same time, they were damaging multiple police cars in the vicinity, so the chaos just sort of shifted or reignited.
And the violence seemed to escalate towards officers, too.
That's a key point here. There were reports of individuals shooting commercial-grade fireworks at the officers.
Loud up in the air. at them.
Directed at them.
Ah.
And we have a quote from the LAPD chief about this, stating very bluntly that those kinds of fireworks can kill you.
That really puts the danger they were facing into perspective.
It absolutely does. It's not just protest anymore at that point. It's direct, potentially lethal assault.
Let's circle back to those Waymos for a second. We got some more details about that specific vandalism. They were confirmed to be unoccupied, right? No one inside.
That's crucial detail, yes. Unoccupied taxis. So thankfully, no passengers or drivers were harmed inside the vehicles during the vandalism itself.
But the damage was severe. Graffiti, broken windows. You said multiple set on fire.
At least 5, according to the information we have, set alight.
And some of the descriptions of the scene are just surreal.
They really are. There's one image described of a shirtless person standing on top of a spray-painted Waymo, waving a Mexican flag while the car's basically burning underneath him.
And another one, someone taking a selfie leaning on the hood of a burning Waymo.
Yeah. It captures this bizarre, almost performative aspect to some of the destruction amidst the chaos. Really striking visuals.
But beyond the visuals, there was a real safety issue with those burning cars, wasn't there?
A very serious one. Because they're electric cars, the burning lithium-ion batteries release toxic gases.
Ah, right. The fumes.
Exactly. The LAPD actually had to warn people in the area about it, and they ended up shutting down surrounding blocks because of the hazardous fumes.
And Waymo's reaction?
They halted their service, pulled their rideshare operations from the downtown area after all this vandalism happened. Understandable, really.
Yeah, you can see why. Now, besides the Freeway and the Waymos, the unrest kind of spread out, didn't it? Continued into the night.
It did. Crowds were moving through different parts of downtown. People were seen with various symbols. Mexican flags, Palestinian flags were mentioned.
Holding signs too?
Holding signs condemning ICE, yes. And chanting things like, quit your job, presumably directed at law enforcement or federal agents.
And other illegal acts were reported too, not just the protests or the main freeway stuff.
Seems so. One group allegedly throwing fireworks at officers in a different location. And another incident mentioned involved looting, businesses near 6th and Broadway being targeted.
So it really broadened beyond just the initial protests focus.
It appears that way, yeah. Encompassing various forms of unrest and criminal activity as the night went on.
All of this led to arrests, obviously.
Yes, at least 27 people were arrested over the course of that Sunday.
And the authorities declared the area, what was the term?
An unlawful assembly area. That designation was put on downtown LA.
Which basically gives police more authority to disperse crowds, right?
Essentially, yes. It's a formal step signaling that the situation is deemed dangerous and requires stricter measures to restore order. It shows the level of concern from the city and police.
Okay, this brings us to the official reactions. And this is where things get really interesting because the perspectives presented are, well, miles apart.
They really are, and it's critical just looking at the statements provided to see how differently the same set of events were framed.
Let's start local. The LAPD chief, Jim McDonnell. What was his take?
His quote reflects the immediate pressure on his officers. He said, "We are overwhelmed." And he specifically called out the danger from those commercial-grade fireworks.
Understandable, given what you described. Then the mayor of LA, Karen Bass.
Her statement called for peaceful protest, as you'd expect, but she also dove into the context behind the protests.
Outside.
She refuted the idea that the ICE raids, which seemed to spark the initial protests, were only targeting criminals. And she directly linked the administration's actions, raiding workplaces, separating families, running, quote, armored caravans. She linked those things to causing fear and panic.
So connecting the unrest back to the perceived causes of the protest itself.
Exactly. Attributing the environment of chaos, at least in part, to those preceding federal actions.
Okay, and then the national level.
Yeah.
President Trump's response.
A dramatically different tone and assessment. The information notes he ordered 2,000 National Guard troops, though only about 300 had reportedly arrived by Sunday.
And his statement.
Issued via Truth Social. He called Los Angeles invaded and occupied by illegal aliens and criminals. That's a direct quote presented.
Invaded and occupied. Strong language.
Very strong. He described the events as violent insurrectionist mobs attacking federal agents.
So framing it as an attack on federal authority.
Primarily, yes. He stated the riots only strengthen our resolve. and then he issued a directive.
What was the directive?
Ordering the Secretaries of Homeland Security, Defense, and the Attorney General to, and again this is quoted, take all such action necessary to liberate Los Angeles from the migrant invasion, expel illegals, and restore order.
Wow. Liberate Los Angeles. Migrant invasion? That's a completely different narrative.
Completely. And seeing these statements side by side, purely based on what's provided here, just underscores how the exact same situation on the ground was immediately interpreted and framed through vastly different political lenses. Local versus national, cause versus effect, protester versus invader. It's stark.
Absolutely stark. Okay, so we've walked through the details. The Whimos becoming targets, the freeway takeover, the clashes, the dangerous fireworks, the spreading unrest, the arrests, and now these incredibly divergent official responses. So pulling this all together, what does this deep dive really tell you, the listener?
Well, hopefully it helps you look past just the breaking news flashes and understand the sheer complexity of an event like this. You see all the different layers playing out.
Like what?
Like the initial protests' intent, how quickly parts of it can morph into civil unrest, into actual criminal acts like vandalism and looting. You see novel targets emerging like these automated vehicles.
Oh, what, the tech angle?
The tech angle, yeah. You see the very real dangers and challenges faced by police trying to manage it all. And then critically, you see how the whole thing gets instantly filtered through these competing political narratives.
Local concerns versus national agendas.
Precisely. It gives you a detailed look at how a demonstration can escalate, the diverse impacts it has, and how differently it can be understood and responded to by those in power.
It certainly paints a detailed picture of a chaotic weekend. So maybe a final thought for you to chew on based on everything we've covered here. Consider how these automated vehicles, these Whimos, which are designed for, passive, predictable movement, how they suddenly became such loaded symbols and physical targets in the middle of intense urban unrest.
Yeah, that dynamic between advanced technology deployed in public spaces and its potential role or vulnerability during civil disobedience. That's something maybe not fully on the radar when the tech was first rolled out.
Definitely adds another layer to think about when we see technology and society intersecting in unexpected ways. Thanks for tuning in to Infinity News. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and let us know your thoughts in the comments.